Here's a video that might be helpful for anyone who has a balcony that is sagging, maybe an inch or two down and needs to be lifted back up. And of course, this is just for this type of system where you have a beam and some post, maybe some concrete footing supporting it. Now, the first thing that you need to realize is it's probably sagging. It's going to have something to do with the concrete footings sinking into the soil. So that's going to be the first thing. You might actually need some new footings, but the reason why it's sagging, if there's no wood damage, you don't have any dry rot or termites, then it might be from the footings. That's going to be the problem most of the time. Let's go ahead and take a look at the joist. This is something else that could happen. As it settles down, it's going to pull away from the top. And then when you raise it back up, it might actually pull out of the hangers. So keep that in mind. You're going to need to look at the hangers as you're raising it. And if it's pulling away, you're going to need to figure out a way to get these things back. And if you need a video on that, I will try and make one for you. Feel free to leave a question in the comment area. Now, I created some type of a system here that's going to provide us with some additional safety in case the jacks fail or the posts kind of plop out when you're working on it and it was to fall back down. It'll have some backup posts to fall on. So this is always nice to have. You can build your own system. This something I did here was just screwed it into the post, existing post, the new support post, put a 2x4 across, have it sitting on top of some blocks, and leave enough room for the jack. There it is, the jack. Now, here I have a piece of plywood. Make sure that the post, the supporting post here for the jack that you're going to be using to raise the beam and the floor will be attached to the beam. Make sure it's attached to something. It's common to, and I've said this in my videos before, to be raising the beam and then you go to put some supports in, some shims underneath here, and then you lower the beam and this thing falls and clobbers you on the head. So this is a good idea here. Go ahead and take a look at the jack. Make sure that it's on some type of a block. And of course you're going to want the safety post on top of a block also. Let's shoot up to the top, get an idea what I'm talking about here. This one here obviously will not be able to attach to the beam. Otherwise, it's going to pull this up with it. So won't be able to do that on that one. And then you will need to remove the nails, remove anything that is going to prevent this from raising. So this is a priority. You might not even have a end column cap like this. You might just have the post sitting on top of the beam, or the beam sitting on top of the post. If that's the case, you're going to need to remove the nails or the screws, whatever's connecting it, so that it will lift up. The next step will be to raise the jack, raise the beam a little bit, and I will leave that up to you with what you feel comfortable with. I'm going to start with a 1/2 inch here. Put a 1/2 inch piece of OSB in here and a piece over here. And you can always screw this into the beam. You know, each piece of plywood or scrap piece of wood you have in there, screw it into the beam to prevent it from falling out. So you could either attach it to the post or the beam, but you could put a screw into the beam and then the next one, put another screw into the scrap wood you're using. Now you can move the jack over to the other side. This is going to be resting on your shims you put underneath the post. And then you will simply lift this side up. We can see same situation again. And then, of course, I have my nails in here. Haven't removed them. Shame on me with my drawing. Put the shims back in here. And then lower the jack and go to the other side. So you're going to just work one side to one side. Now, if you have two jacks, feel free to set them up and raise it up as you feel necessary. Now, once you have it where you want it and the floor is back to where it should be, you can simply put a filler board in between the bottom of the post, or the bottom of the beam, and the top of the post or the bracket. And then you could simply screw that into the beam or nail it into the beam. And then this will be used to keep the beam and the floor in position once you remove everything. And then in a case like this, you'll be able to nail the hardware, the post caps, back to the beam. If you can't, then you might need to put a strap on the beam to the post to connect it, which you'll see in a few seconds here. Now, if you have to raise it higher than 3 inches, you might end up with a situation like this, where you're going to put a 2x4 and another 2x4 and maybe a scrap piece of wood in between. And you can see here we're out of the building hardware here. The beam is not going to be connected or make a good connection there. And I would also suggest using the screws again or the nails. Simply attach one board to the beam with some screws or nails, attach the filler piece, and then attach the other board so that you've created a solid piece. You just don't want these things to be hanging there. Here's the strap I was talking about. You can see here where it is going to connect the beam to the post. And also it can attach to the blocks here. And you can always grab another strap and wrap it around the blocks too. And then, of course, maybe put one on each side. You can always put one on the end here if you wanted a little more support. Now, if it does need to raise more than 2 or 3 inches, you got a bunch of filler blocks in here, you might want to replace the post. This would probably be your best option. Get rid of the blocks, replace the post all the way down to the footing. As I mentioned earlier, the footing is probably going to be the problem, the reason why this is sagging. If it is, then it might need to be removed. You might need a larger one. And if that's the case, you're going to need to create a stronger structure to support it with braces. And I can always make another video about that in the future, probably will. If I don't make it and you're working on something like this, shoot me an email and I will put it on my list to make a little sooner than later. So anyway, that's it for the video. I hope it helps. And if it does, don't forget to hit the old thumbs up button.